All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to an in-person event for those who haven't done it. I'm very happy about that. As I've told most of you in this room, we've only been planning this event for 3 years. I hope the chicken's not too tough. I'm sure our folks over at One World made sure it was not. So I hope you enjoy your dinner, keep eating, and we'll go from there. My name is Steve Bryant, and I serve as the Executive Director here for the Gail and Bill Cook Center for Entrepreneurship here at Ivy Tech Community College. I want to welcome you back to the annual Cook Institute event. I want to thank, on behalf of Chancellor Vaughn and our Campus Board of Trustees, I see Connie Ferguson's here. Say hi, Connie. Hi. Bruce Calloway down at the end. I see the Bruce man. Cindy Canarney, I think Cindy's here. Hi, Cindy. Shauna Gerges is in the back, and Lynn Coyne is right up front. Hey, Lynn, thank you for coming back. And Gretchen Gutman's here from our State Board of Trustees. Thank them for being here today. And if I missed any of our trustees, I'll submit my resignation by the end of the day. My performance review is this Friday. Anybody want to attend? First of all, I want to thank all of our sponsors. We couldn't do the event without you. As some of you know, this is our annual fundraiser for the Cook Center for Entrepreneurship. We use those proceeds for programs to support our students and our work in the community. I'll talk about that here in a second. But I want to thank all our signature sponsors. Cook Medical, as always, thank you for your support of our event. German American Bank, our other signature sponsor, we appreciate all your support. Our premier sponsors, Cassidy Electric, Duke Energy, Indiana University Credit Union, Old National Bank, and all of our table sponsors. Thank you so much. Everything that you do makes us help our students and community better for all of our entrepreneurs and all of our small businesses. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. As I mentioned, some of the programs we use for our students, some of you know we have a new program called RISE. It's an Applied Entrepreneurial Studies program. It's a 2-semester program, so you can literally walk out of here ready to start your business, ready to perform in a pitch competition, set up kind of like an accelerator. I see Pat, he's here from the Mill, and our students, we want them to go to the Mill when they're done with here or while they're doing their classes. And we want them to start their business here in the Bloomington community and do great things. We also, last week, we had our Duke It Out pitch competition, sponsored by Duke Energy, and also supported by some funds from Elevate Ventures, from a grant we had gotten right before COVID. So we had 4 students pitch, and they all walked away with cash and prizes of about $4,000 to start their businesses, and one of them is already in business. If you've been around town and seen the Bloomberger food truck, they were our first place winner, and Hallie Ballman did a great job with her pitch and took away $2,000 to support paying off a food truck that she just purchased down in Miami. So we're happy about that. Again, I mentioned some of our community outreach. I see our folks from Bloomington Economic Development are here. We use some of our funds each year to support the B-Start competition that they have for startups here in the community. Additionally, lots of pitch events at the Mill. I think there's an event at the Mill every other week now, which is great. We're happy that those can go on now that the pandemic started to slow down a little bit. The intellectual property competition from the Crane folks and Radius, we've been supporting that for several years. In addition to things like Lemonade Day, the Incubator EDU program here at MCCSC. So we're everywhere. We're still out there partnering with most of the organizations in the community that are doing anything entrepreneurship, and we're happy to do so. Well, you can't have an event like this without our team. Jack Dreesen here in the corner. Jack's our coordinator for the Cook Center and SBDC. Jack's kind of our coordinator for the entire event, so thanks, Jack, for all he's doing to make it happen. Joyce Poling, I don't want to forget Joyce Poling. I did it 1 year, and I'm still apologizing. Joyce, she's made sure you're all sitting in the right spots, amongst other great things she did in choosing our menu for today. Tina Phelps, everybody knows Tina is Jenny's right-hand person here at the college, and she does a little bit of everything, and everybody from Ivy Tech pitches in when we have an event. It's one of the things I love about working here. Everybody's willing to lend a hand and volunteer when you need it. Amanda Billings from marketing, thanks to Amanda for helping out. Emma Ferguson from our development office, I think some of you know Emma pretty well. Give her a big hand, she's in the back hiding out. Troy Phelps from our assistant director at the Cook Center, he helped out along with our committee, and all of our team at facilities and IT and marketing and all the volunteers that helped out, even some student volunteers. I hope they got a seat to have lunch. So thank you. Thanks to all of them for making this happen. On your seats, most of you, I think, had a book, and I'll tell you why you have a book. Right before COVID happened, we have a trade association we're part of for community colleges. They have entrepreneur programs. And we got 30 cases of books from the author who wanted to donate it to about 25 community colleges around the country. And one of the reasons they chose IB Tech is it's the largest statewide network of community college in all the community colleges in the country, in all the states. So we got rid of a lot of those before the COVID happened, and we're sitting on 7 cases. So you're all getting a free book today. It's really good, though. It's a beach read. And if you leave it here, I'm going to have to find it, and I'm going to put it on your car somewhere in town. So please take it. But you will enjoy it. It's actually a really good book. I will give you a primer. There's a really good article about how the founder of Blackstone, who's a very rich person at this juncture, decided not to invest in Bloomberg in the first funding round for Bloomberg. That was his big miss. So, but you'll enjoy it. I know you will. There's some comment cards on your table. We're going to, if time allows, we'll ask a few questions of Bill for the group. So feel free to jot down a question. If we have time, we'll get to those, and Troy Phelps will come up and do those here at the end of the event. I'm going to do a very, very extensive introduction of Bill Oliver. Welcome, Bill Oliver.
Can y'all hear me? If this technology they got me wired up to works. It's great to be here. I'm honestly humbled knowing who's spoken to you before, so it's thrilling. And it's been a lot of fun putting this presentation together to kind of reflect on where we've gone over now 50 years. I've had 2 years to prepare this too, since Joyce asked me in roughly July of 2020 to do this, that fall, so plenty of time to get ready. Speaking of Joyce, I got together with Joyce and Jenny a couple weeks ago, and it was like, guys, give me some pointers. What should I do? What should I not do? And she says, well, be entertaining, and people really want to know about grape stomping and balloon mishaps. Okay, I can do that. So we're going to get that out of the way first. So this would be mid-1980s. This would be one of the grape stomping events held at Oliver Winery. It was... And I'm congratulating the winning team. I think it was employees from Big Red Liquors. Is there any chance that any of you were in that picture? Possibly. I'm there with my dad. So that's grape stomping, mid-1980s at Oliver Winery. All right, let's go back to somebody had the wisdom to put me in charge of Cub Scouts a dozen years ago, and Wesley right there, my oldest. And so we put about literally 1,000 pounds of grapes into these harvest bins and threw the kids in there. And we didn't really have a quantitative way to really measure the outcome of this thing, so we just gave them style points. And that was bad. So what I didn't have to expect to have to explain is to how grape seeds got into their ears. And the skin rashes that a few kids developed. That was last year I was in charge of Cub Scouts. All right, balloon mishaps. This was my first balloon. This is 1971. I was 11 years old. Built this balloon out of tissue paper. And tissue paper is good because it's light. It's bad because it's extremely easy to tear, and it's highly flammable. So this first launch, this is two pieces of stovepipe with some fiberglass insulation with lighter fluid poured on it. That's our heating device. We heat it up. It takes off, and balloon pilots know that balloons are always attracted to the tallest tree anywhere you go, and it landed on top of a very tall tree. And over the course of several days when it rained upon it, just sort of disintegrated slowly in front of me. That was kind of sad to watch. Of 6 balloons I built, only one survived one flight. It did not survive a second flight. Another one went up in flames like the Hindenburg. That was fun. I wish we'd had smartphones back then, because that would have gone viral. That was special. Okay, 1976, we get a hot air balloon. This was built by a little outfit in Atlanta, Georgia called Adams Balloons. Those balloons were known to be extremely tough in the basket and the envelope and all that. Probably a very good thing for a 16-year-old balloonist, right? Doesn't really know what he's doing, have a balloon that you can't really damage. So 1978, Brown County decided to host a balloon race in the middle of the winter, which in hindsight, what the hell is that about? So we're over there flying. I take off down by Story, flying north. Decided I want to land in the parking lot of what is now Seasons Lodge. Andy Rogers owned it. And we have 2 million BTU burner in this thing. I have 40 million today in a balloon. Okay, this is 2 million, so not much power in this thing. I'm coming into the parking lot to land. I said there's too many cars, too many people. I can't land there. I turn on the burner to go back up again. I run right into the hotel. I crush in the soffit and the gutter, drag across the roof, take out a ton of shingles of a vent, with a big crowd watching. And but the FAA is very particular about balloon accidents, and they defined, balloon accident as if anybody gets hurt or if there's more than $15,000 worth of damage. No one was hurt, no damage to the balloon, because remember, it's an Adams balloon, and never got a bill from Andy Rogers, so it wasn't an accident. This is an impact site of when a balloon, a 25-pound pumpkin is thrown out of a balloon from 5,000 feet. This is this is last September. This is Kathleen's idea, my wife. So literally 5,000 feet high. And I would normally not throw them out that high, but we couldn't get across where we wanted to throw it out because it was like dead calm. So we just kept climbing. And it was a bit over 5,000 we threw it out. Now, believe me, a pumpkin's going fast when it's going to drop that far. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing here. I may have scientists out there that can help me with this thing. This thing, this thing is about maybe 3 inches deep and 30 inches in diameter. This pit in the ground, almost no trace of the pumpkin, and the soil is black. And here's what I think. It's dead serious. I think that transferring that kinetic energy, like decelerating from 125 miles an hour to 0 in 3 inches, probably releases some heat. I mean, does that make sense to anybody? So I think the next plan, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it again. I get Kathleen out there with an instant read oven thermometer, and then when it hits, we'll go check the temperature. Purely scientific inquiry. All right. Thank you. That was fun. So we got our federal license in 1972 to make wine, and that makes 2022 our 50th year, and it's been an amazing run. Go all the way back to the beginning here. No, actually, I'm going to go to the punchline. I forgot. So, so how big is Oliver Winery? And kind of, because that's kind of the big story, is that we've grown to be a fairly significant winery in the eastern United States. So last year we kind of squeaked in at about 750,000 cases. You can see our growth over time. It was pretty small operation for about the first half of that, and then we had a little climb and a little dip, and we'll talk about the dip later on in the presentation. And what does that mean? What's the context of 750,000 cases? So this is the top 50 wineries in the United States. Okay, this is put together by Wine Business Monthly. You can see where we sit kind of in the middle of that pack. We've been on this list. It'll be the second year in a row. We squeaked in last year because they went from top 30 to top 50, which kind of helped us get on the list. But Wine Business Monthly states that these 50 wineries of 11,000 in the United States make 90% of the wine made in the United States. And it's not very hard to do a little backward math to figure out what do these guys on the other end make? Gallo and Wine Group, right? The largest and next to largest wineries together making 150 million cases a year. Okay? That's half of the wine in the United States. So I think in context you can see we're big, but there's a lot of room to go on the left side over there. And that's our job right now, is to keep marching in that direction. So how did we get started? So William Oliver moves to Bloomington in 1959. He joins the law faculty at Indiana University, and he's a professor of federal income tax, and had a lot of hobbies. He was just sort of this very classic jack of all trades, master of none kind of guy. He just did a lot of really interesting stuff. And one day he was making wine in the basement of our home, and he would drive over to a little vineyard in southern Illinois. We had a DeSoto car, right? And we had this old junky wooden trailer that he borrowed from my uncle. And we'd go over there and get a ton of grapes. And I don't mean figuratively. I mean 2,000 pounds in this wooden trailer behind that DeSoto. And we'd haul it down to the basement of our house and stomp grapes. And so that kind of started that idea of maybe having a winery someday. We went to Cornell in Ithaca, New York in 1965, where he taught there for a year on sabbatical and became interested in the wineries in western New York that were growing. And says, well, they can do this in western New York. Why can't we do it in Bloomington, Indiana? I can tell you reasons why there is a difference between western New York and Bloomington, Indiana, but at the time, they're kind of the same. So he buys land in northern Monroe County, where we are today. This is kind of the initial 80 acres, and Kathleen and I bolted on a whole bunch more acreage since then. But that's my father and myself planting grapes in 1966. It was some of the old school interspecific varieties. It was some of the hybrids that aren't commonly grown today. But that was the start of the winery in 1966. Was getting grapes planted out there. bought land north of Bloomington on then 2-lane State Road 37, and the initial winery was just this humble little outbuilding right here, kind of a one-car garage making wine in these stainless steel barrels that had stamped on them, property of Dr. Pepper. So I still have those, by the way, and if anybody needs any, they make awesome trash cans. It was about, prior to this, he had gone through the Indiana State, the General Assembly to get the laws changed so we could operate a winery, and so opened there. We were bonded winery Indiana number 3. We're the oldest surviving winery in the state. Number 1 and number 2 are gone. I wanted to show this picture because my mom's in this picture. Very few pictures of her exist because she always took the pictures, right? She was on the other side of the camera. So I just want to point her out. And, he was a full-time law professor during the early days. And she was the one who could spend the time at the winery Monday to Friday, right? So she was in there making sure that the bills got paid and all that. So we start this, humble tasting room, which we built in 1973. We did this underground structure for winemaking process, and we still have this building. It's been out there that still exists. It's kind of sandwiched in between a couple other buildings right now. We use it for barrel storage. That's me. It's obviously pretty muddy out there. You can tell by the way I'm prancing around. But so my dad, in his wisdom, he buries this thing in soil, right, thinking this is going to be like a wine cave kind of thing. And I later find a letter in a file from the company that sold us this kit. It says, Mr. Oliver, under no circumstances should this structure be covered with earth. So if you're out there, you'd have been warned. It is covered with earth. So it was, really super humble operation initially. It was just kind of like, I would call it glorified home winemaking. It just scaled up a little bit. You can kind of see the way we're bottling. There's a siphon filler right there. And this is in that underground cellar. There's my dad. He was so unafraid to be exactly who he was. You would never find me in a plastic Viking helmet in a million years. But he was kind of a bit of a showman, and we were making Camelot mead back then, and he developed this, Camelot Mead Festival at the winery. Anybody ever go to that, like 70s and 80s in here? Anybody go back? Good for you. That was Bloomington's original drunk fest. It was nuts. But at any rate, so that's that at the Camelot Mead Fest. Now we hired these guys. Now these guys, the Merry Mud Wrestlers that we saw at another Renaissance festival. And these guys, we dug a hole in the ground with a backhoe, put 1,000 gallons of water in here. These guys go out there and mud wrestle. They called it theater in the ground. And we got some complaints about not being family friendly, and it wasn't. It was a little bawdy. So all right, so Camelot Mead was kind of the wine of the day then. It was really kind of this unexpected, cash cow for us, and we spent most of our efforts, I would say, in 1973 to maybe late 70s, really focusing on selling this wine. We did it all completely self-distribution. This guy is Phil Brote. He worked for us in the late 70s and early 80s, and he made all the sales and delivered all the wine, and we got up to about 5,000 cases with a little bit of a chart here. So this is kind of the Camelot Mead here, where we peaked out in 78, 79 at 5,000 cases. And it was kind of this nice sort of parabolic life cycle as we went up and down. And, about 1981, I think Phil's going, this is not much fun anymore. I'm not selling as much, and he quits. And we joined a sort of a handful of ragtag distributors that continued to sell Camelot Mead. I mean, that was pretty much what we were, a mead-making operation. And by 1983, when I graduated from IU, it was rough. It was a really tough time for us. That was kind of the focus, and it wasn't working. So I took over in 1983, and my dad right there. I had been out west visiting wineries in California, and I was just really inspired by the way they did it out there. It's the whole model of just making the place beautiful and good wines and treat people nice and walk in the front door. And most of those wineries, and most of the 11,000 I referred to earlier, they sell straight to the public, either right through their front door, or they sell through now wine clubs and online. So I thought that's really what we need to do, Dad. We need to really kind of focus on the retailing operation, stop worrying about Camelot Mead. And so that was the transition that we made in 1983. And I've just got to do a couple of set of upgrades. And it was super tight. The money was super tight. It was just what can we do today to make the place prettier, all right? So just as simple as just planting flowers and putting some new signage up and keeping the lawn mowed and all that stuff. It was just kind of curb appeal issues, right? getting the place looking better. So this is the front of the winery in the early 80s, and this was the original house and stone building that was original winery. This is what you saw when you drove up. This is not attractive, I'm telling you folks. So here's what we did. All right, now this is a total ripoff from Cook because they did this in Spencer at Cook Urological, right? So a complete ripoff, thank you. Let's do what they did. So we hired this guy, Mark Wallace. He was like a sculptor, stacking up rocks. And we piled up these rocks in front of the winery. And I think that was a pretty good call. Actually, I think it was a pretty good idea. All right, soft red. So, and this was kind of the thing that happened that became a big thing later, as we all know. So we had been getting grapes from a vineyard in Madison, Indiana, grown on the grounds of the Indiana State Hospital. Politically incorrectly called a mental institution. All right, so they grew grapes on this property. They had a big acre. They would ship us the grapes. We would make the wine. It was Concord grapes. We would make the wine. We would ship them like a third of the wine in return in payment for the grapes. People love this wine. People like Concord. It's just all-American, wonderful flavor. So it was a big seller out of the tasting room. And it was also sold way better than the 1 acre of grapes in Madison, Indiana could supply us for. Plus, a little back of the napkin, when I figured out what it was costing us in terms of the opportunity cost of sending this wine back down there, we were spending like $3,000 a ton in Concord when you could buy it in New York for $125 a ton. I was like, Dad, I don't think it's a good deal for us. So we stopped buying it from them. We started buying grapes directly from Concord producers in Michigan and Ohio and New York. And since we couldn't call it Vino de Cragmont anymore, because that was kind of a name we agreed on with the folks in Madison, we called it soft red, which I don't claim to have, I don't think that was brilliant, but that's what we called it. It later became, as it grew up a little bit, became a little more polished in its appearance, became that, and we'll talk a little bit more at that later. So another thing we started to do in the mid-'80s, we stopped growing grapes. It just wasn't working. It was the wrong grapes, it was the wrong people, it was the wrong time for us to be doing that, and just to conserve cash, I said, this is probably something we need to stop doing, instead buy from those who do it well on the West Coast, and we started bringing in fruit from the West Coast. We really kind of pioneered that for Eastern wineries. It's sort of the how-to of getting, a whole semi-load of grapes to Indiana intact, so you can also see some of our other suppliers on there. Packaging, that's been a huge deal, and that was a big focus of mine in the early days. And we started using some Bills and Ramon art, you can see, and really transition away from this really super homemade look to something that looked a little more professional. And a nice tie-in with the location, right? Because we used wildlife. Bill Zimmerman was a wildlife artist, lived in Nashville. I don't know if any of you know him, but that was super helpful. So, and then, how we treated people in the tasting room, and, a big breakthrough, and this is so obvious, is we got rid of the little plastic Dixie cup and we went to the wine glasses. That's a big upgrade, all right? Let's be a little more dignified about the way this works. Anybody in here that's up there? I saw a picture of Connie Ferguson in one of these pictures that I was doing. I should have brought that one out there. Yeah. That's Tom Hirons right there. Tom Hirons is right there. That was his partner, Chris Williams. Yeah. All right. So hey, it worked, right? So the retailing efforts worked, right? So we got the gold bars are the wholesale, and the blue bars are the retail, and the retail was climbing, right? And this is where the money is, right? Because if I make a bottle of wine and it costs me $10 to make or $5 to make, and I sell it for $10 at retail, I made $5. If I got a wholesale discount, it's 50% off of front line for me to sell it to distributor who sells it to Kroger, who sells it to you on their shelf for about the same thing I would sell for at the winery. You follow that? So I got to sell for $5. It cost me $5 to make. There's no money up here. At that scale, it is completely not workable to sell through distribution. Got to be a lot bigger to make that work. So, all right, so we grow the size of the winery, basically triple retail. I'm not saying we're profitable, but we were at least cash flow, sort of able to pay the bills. I decided to go get my MBA. And then, on my application, I'm not like to be straight with people. I said, why are you studying at university? He said, I'm looking for a smart, attractive woman that I can marry who will help me run this winery. So I got that. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen, right there, my business partner. And, at the time, this was I think our winemaker at the time, named Steve Mullen, was awesome. I loved the guy. He was kind of one of those first employees that was like, yeah, let's do something great with this business. He was really engaged and non-combative, and he was just a super good employee, a good winemaker. He left as soon as I got my MBA. He said he's going to go on and do something else, and leaves us without a winemaker. I got Kathleen's going to join the business. I think she can run all the admin stuff. I'll make the wine. So that was our, kind of my transition from being kind of the business end of the business to being the operations end. You think I went and got my MBA and now I'm the winemaker, but I think it really helped us to have kind of the owner as the winemaker, because I think it's just really kind of our roots as a successful winemaking organization. We really had to figure out what we wanted to be as winemaking. I think you got to have a philosophical sort of a anchor. You got to know what kind of wines you want to make, and I know what we wanted to make, and we wanted to make wines that had nice, fresh, clean varietal character. They tasted like the fruit from which they were made, and that they were clean. And when I say clean, I mean an absence of faults. They're not defective in any way, and that people just want to buy again and again and again. Yeah, it's kind of that pour me another glass kind of style. So I'm going to tell you exactly how to make those kinds of wines. It's top secret. Don't share this with anybody. You got to start with good fruit, okay? Because we're taking fruit and we're just capturing those flavors. We want to get it from the field into the bottle. Capturing those flavors, we taste that grape in the vineyard, those strawberries in the field, whatever it is you're making them, they got to taste grape. There's no way for me to magically create flavors that don't exist in the fruit and get it into the bottle, right? So we got to start with really good fruit. Kind of goes back to that sourcing idea, going back to the West Coast and other places to buy really good fruit. Minimalist winemaking for us is certainly the case, and the more we do this, the more discipline we get about this concept right here of doing as few things to this fruit as possible to get it in the bottle, right? Every time you do something, you transfer it, you filter it, you do this or that, you add something. There's always a negative associated with that. So doing things as few steps as possible. Cleanliness is a big thing for us. We spend probably as much time cleaning tanks and equipment as we do actually, messing with fruit and making wine. So very important. Refrigeration is a big deal in wine processing. We know that when wines ferment, they create a lot of heat and can damage flavor and aroma. So keeping wine cool during fermentation is a big deal. All of our tanks are refrigerated, and I jokingly sometimes say that wine is made with grapes and electricity, because there's some serious cooling going on in this facility during fermentation period. We use a lot of inert gas. We use nitrogen, carbon dioxide, argon in certain cases to protect wine from oxygen, because oxygen is the enemy of wine. So as I always tell my crew, is like gas is cheap and bad wine is very expensive. So use a lot of gas. So I'm working on this. Kathleen's over there working in the tasting room. She's making sure that that's running great. It's working on training at HR and marketing, all that fun stuff, and sales continue to grow. And by the time 93 she joins, and we're working together, and the winery, we've now about doubled the retail sales. It might have already tripled. So the retail is really going, and we're still just totally committed to this. We are a retailing winery. That's what we're going to do. So 97 we dig deep and build this. Built a new tasting room in 1997, still called the new tasting room, 25 years later. But at any rate, it was, let's see if that'll show there again. But anyway, that's it. And you've all been out there, you all know it. But it was really a special time for us to really make this big investment in the retailing end of our winery. We wanted to build something that made sense locally, right? I mean, I want local architecture should fit the locality and the hardwood that we use, the stone that we have out front. Warm, inviting, comfortable, big and spacious were all the things we were looking for. A lot of money on landscaping. Okay, I was a landscaping guy in 1983. I cut a barrel in half and put marigolds and impatiens in them, right? So we've gone beyond that a little bit. So we got a full-time landscaping staff out there, put a ton of money into this. We don't really talk about if it's a good investment or not. Julie's just kind of quiet on that issue. We know it is, absolutely. It's important. It's a critical part of our brand. And the interior right there, which is where we are today. So, and then customer service, and that's been a super big focus of us, is just to make people feel as welcome as possible as they can when they walk in the front door. Has anybody ever walked in a snooty West Coast winery and felt like you were kind of being sized up, like you didn't belong there? Yeah, I mean, I've had that. I didn't want anybody to come in our winery and feel like they were being sized up, and are you good enough to be in our tasting room? So A big focus of ours is, certainly customer service. That has a lot to do with hiring and training and all that, and creating just a really healthy employment culture too, which is, you have happy employees, right? They're gonna do well with their work. So, and we got a lot of good press on this, right? We were like, there's kind of this outlier in the east of this winery that was really delivered it from the retail perspective. So, see some of the articles we had. We had a really good Wall Street Journal article about that too. It was around this time. So anyway, 1999. So we are with this ragtag bunch of distributors. I mean, remember, we don't care about the wholesale. We're a retailing winery. We don't care about it. But Olinger, a distributor in Indianapolis that later got bought up like multiple steps. It's been this big gobbling up of wholesalers. Buys a couple of the small distributors we were with, by the Miller family. And they're just kind of getting going. They don't have a lot of wines that come in their book, we would say, not a lot of stuff to sell. And so they come to Kathleen and I, say, hey, we want to come down and talk to you. Okay, sure. So we meet in our conference room, and they said, we would like to be your exclusive distributor in Indiana. We really think we could do something with this thing. And we're like, okay. I mean, it's like, you didn't think you were going to the prom until someone asked. So like, oh, yeah, let's go. We shake hands. I don't think there was a contract. I don't think there was. They have really big contracts these days. They're like this thick. Any rate, they take off and they start ordering wine. We're not supporting it, right? We're not supporting it. I don't have a salesperson. It's me, right? If there was a salesperson, it would be me. And the sales just start coming in from these guys because they got their sales staff excited about it, and they're selling it, and it really starts to grow. And then so the next year this is 2001. Sofreb becomes the #1 selling wine in Indiana. All right, this is all based on Nielsen scanner data. We use a lot of scanner data to really assess performance here. Back up 1 year earlier to 2000. We have some inquiries from outside of Indiana. We're only in Indiana at this time. Some Ohio, Kentucky distributors. Hey, we're interested in selling your wine over in our states. We're like, maybe, okay, let's do it. So we're going to either go big or we're not going to do it at all. We built a big steel building behind the winery, put a beautiful new tank room in there, a bottling line which was 14 times really bigger than we really needed at the time. And so we're just going to go with this thing. So we really it was a wake-up call for us with the sales in Indiana that we could run with this thing. So, retail still became a thing, but we're going to see if we can really make this wholesale business work. We hired a sales manager in 2000 and off he went. So, this is what happened. That was nuts. This was I think probably the most kind of yeehaw time in my business career of that we just couldn't mess anything up. We were just killing it, growing like crazy. And part of it was that the big guys just weren't paying attention. Gallo and Wine Group and all these yahoos out there were just completely dismissing, this sweet wine category as a bottom shelf kind of stuff. And we were just taking it all in. It's all ours, just completely ours. Did a lot of really nice investments that we just, we paid for out of the checking account. Super healthy profits. It was just absolutely these beautiful 96,000-gallon monsters. Those are awesome tanks. All right, and then in the meantime, we're also starting to grow grapes. Okay, back in 2000, we buy the farm adjacent to the original property my father had. We started planting grapes out there. We felt that getting back into the grape business would be a very certainly important part of what we sell at retail, right? I think there's a big story associated with selling estate-grown wines from grapes that you grow yourself. Really important sort of brand building exercise for us. So off we went. We planted about 50 acres of grapes out there on North Woodall Road. And, we were, like in the winemaking, the plan was to do it as best we could using best practices and really sort of establish ourselves as the benchmark for grape growing in the Eastern United States. And my opinion, that wine is mostly developed in the vineyard. It's about the quality of the fruit. And so if we're going to make great wines from these interspecific varieties, we need to do a really good job in the vineyard, which we did. And we made this is the Creek Bend line, and we truly do kind of set the standard for some of these lesser-known varieties that we grow out there. Would be Vignoles, Vidal Blanc, and Chambourcin, and some others. So beautiful wines. So 2006, Kathleen and I have a 1-year-old. 5-year-old, 4-year-old. Wine is growing like crazy. We're kind of tired. So, run into a guy, he's like, tell me all about these ESOPs. He has a scale business up in Indianapolis. Larry somebody, scuba diver guy. Anyway, I sold my business to my employees. You did what? Oh, yeah, this is the way it works, and this is really cool. And I'm like, I need to know more about that. So we hired a consulting firm to come in and take a look at it. And they're like, oh, yeah, you need to start an ESOP. Of course, they make consulting fees, so they're going to say that. There are a lot of people who made fees along the way on that deal. So we went 100% employee-owned in 2006. And, that's a really long conversation to have. People ask me about it sometimes. And I'm always happy to sit down with people and talk about our experience. It's not for everybody, but it certainly worked well for us. All right, so the big guys that aren't paying attention suddenly started paying attention, and this happens in about 2010. We started seeing all these things pop up. I was at this trade show, and the Gallo rep told me, hey, we copied your Soft Red. I'm like, you copied our Soft Red? He goes, so I ran out and bought a bottle. They did not copy Soft Red, thankfully, but they did have a look-alike product in the market, okay? So things changed dramatically in a hurry. This is around 2010, okay? So sales basically stopped growing. I mean, we just like straight up and then abruptly were flat. And so we got this brilliant idea. It's like, we need to hire like talent from the West Coast. So we hire a marketing person, a salesperson from, Julie's out here. Julie's involved this time, she remembers this. Hire sales and marketing people from large California wineries. And the next year, our sales dropped for the first time in 25 years, right? Yeah, correlation, I don't know, but it sure looked funny. Anyway, they didn't last long. Hey, you, come in here. You're out of here. Yeah. So I think that the big lesson for us was it's a couple things. One's culture, for sure. We're really, really kind of cautious about West Coast, kind of based in sort of in recruitment. It's really been like, I don't know about that. And I think there's also stage issues in people's careers too. And I think if you've got a growing company, you want people that are ascendant, right? You want people that are, they're going up, right? Not people that are kind of like, oh, this is a retirement gig. This is not what you're going to come to Oliver Winery and do. Not, at least not at that time. So not good, right? So look at this. All right. And who's running this operation back then? I was, right? So what I do? I fired myself. We got these people. So Julie had been there. She's been around since 2006. Denix was back to 1997. But Julie was, initially came. Julie Adams right over here with the winery table. Came in initially as controller, but she clearly had so much more kind of interest and got bandwidth than just sticking with the numbers, and she was always there giving advice and being helpful in ways that were far outside of her kind of the scope of being the winery controller. And just a real knack of leadership. And this is her phrase, gentle pressure relentlessly applied, which is, I watch her every day. I go, oh, there's more of that gentle pressure, never stops. She said something, Julie helped me, it was, you like to form collaborative cross-functional teams to dream big and get stuff done or something like that. So anyway, which she does extraordinarily well. Dennis Dunham in operations was starting as a tasting room employee in 97, and I was a winemaker back then, so I like this guy, and he's sharp. And I'm thinking, can you come back and help me in the cellar? I got bottling to do and all this stuff. And like 2 weeks later, he's not working in the tasting room anymore. He's working for me. Sorry, Kathleen. He's just got a knack for it, right? He's just good. He's engaged, and we're growing. He loves it. He's smoking smart. He's funnier than hell. So he takes over the winemaker role in 2008. And that's a little bit in keeping the spirit of being ESOP, right? So you own this place. I don't. You make the wine. So, and then Vice President of Operations in 2012. And he really had just remarkable ability to juggle a lot of balls, right? It was a vineyard. It was, operations also included maintenance and facility and grounds and winemaking, of course. So just really, really good at it. So anything I say going forward, give all the credit to these folks. Anything goes wrong, you can give it to them. You can blame them. But we did do one thing that was, here's one of the things we did here around that time. Now, we hadn't bought a screw capping machine because we were making sangria, and I like to drink New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. Anybody like those? I got screw caps, right? Oregon Pinot Noir, screw caps, right? Screw caps are the next big thing. So we're going to change the package, and we're going to put it on a screw cap because we think that'll really help sales. It didn't, let me tell you. So there's one complaint I got on this thing. I got a lot of complaints. For some reason, I volunteered to take all the complaints. One was simply said, screw caps, screw you. So we retreated away from that pretty quickly, hired a professional designer in the West Coast, and did this design where we largely are today. And then also use this as an opportunity to just kind of really get holistic about our branding. So you'll see that look, that O across everything, including what we would call the flight labels right here with the vinifera varietals with the birds on them. So everything kind of went that direction. We're still continuing to tweak that. So this is a pivotal moment. This is just a screenshot of our webpage. Okay, so this is maybe 8 years ago. The website that we had at the time was mostly about engaging people to visit the winery, right? Because we were a retailing winery, right? That's what we wanted to do. So the website was all about come visit Oliver Winery. But now we're selling in a dozen states, and clearly that's not where the business is. And we really needed to change the website to reflect kind of the new reality of what the business model was. And this was a real coming to terms in terms of who is Oliver Winery? What are we about? And this was like, you know what we do? We make sweet wines. You know, unashamed, unapologetically, this is what we do, and this is how we can grow our business. So that was a really big moment for us, just to kind of go all in on this stuff. So, you know, what we needed to do, I think, you know, at that point, it was clear we needed to innovate because we were going to just sell soft red forever. And it was like, we were kind of a little bit of a one-trick pony back then. So this was a wine that Dennis came up with. You know, Willy Wonka, you know, like the Thanksgiving dinner and the pill, right? That or the chewing gum or whatever it was. But anyway, this is that, right? This is like incredible. And this may not be your style of wine, but you got to try this. I mean, it tastes exactly like apple pie with ice cream on it. It's amazing. Nice thing about this, we could pre-sell it in the summer. We can make it in September. We ship it out in October, and we get paid for it immediately. So it was, from a cash flow point of view, it was an amazing wine, and that spawned peach pie. Which we sell a lot in Georgia, of all places. All right, so we're making Moscato, right, which is just made from Muscat-style grapes. It's just a plain old Moscato. There's a lot of Moscatos out there. A cherry grower from Michigan stops, cold call at the winery and says, hey, can we talk? Well, we sell cherry products like juices. We sell cherries. You guys want to make cherry wine? And, you know, Dennis and I sit down with these folks, and they gave us some samples of some cherry juice, and they leave. Dennis pours like part of the cherry juice into Moscato, and he's like, hey, taste this. We're like, whoa, that's amazing. So we've got this product in the tasting room. We got this pilot project going on in the tasting room, which is like little 500 milliliters screw cap. We were putting experimental wines in just for sale in the tasting room. This is instantly the best-selling item in the tasting room by unit volume in dollars, right here. Instantly is the number one. And like, man, maybe we should run with this. But will it transition to a 750? Is there something special about the small bottle? Or will it transition to that? Well, let's try. So anyway, off it went, and you know, here we are today with these being a giant item for us nationally. This has just really been a truly just knock it out of the park. These wines, every time they've come out, we go back to talk about Nielsen scanner data in Indiana, just jump right into the top 5 slot. I mean, just not even, you know, growing into there, just instantaneously right there at the very top position. So softs are still, you know, a big workhorse for us. I really think that in terms of our competitive advantage, in terms of what we do well, that this is probably a stronger area for us in the Moscato, because, you know, the West Coast guys can certainly do the Moscato thing. That's where that fruit's from. But we are uniquely talented in making wines from Labrusca grapes. And even though it's been around for a long time, there's still a lot left in this wine. So, Porch Swing is the only private branding we're doing right now. We sell in H-E-B in Texas, and it is going to make Texas the number 2 state behind Indiana this year. So we do a lot of this in Texas, and this was an effort just to kind of, you know, I think maybe build a brand that was a little catchier and appeal to a different audience, and sells for $2 more a bottle right there. So anyway, that's helpful. All right, so guess what happens to the knuckleheads out there on the West Coast, right? They're watching us sell the hell out of these like fruit Moscatos, and here they come, you know, our friends at Gallo, barefoot. So these guys, they don't need an R&D department because we're their R&D department. They order wine off our website, drip to winemakers, Ernest and Julio Gallo, Modesto, California. Next shipment's going to have a rubber snake and a handwritten note. Thank you for your fine taste and patronage. Anyway, so I just, what to say? But anyway, all right, how do we sell this wine? We are a grocery store brand. All right, most of the wine associations are sold at grocery stores. These are our grocery store partners. These guys are entirely data-driven. They don't care how the wine tastes. They don't care what it looks like. They just want to sell it, right? And, the nice thing about us is we got to such a strong foothold in the Midwest. We got data. We've got look, we sell this stuff like crazy in Indiana and in Ohio and in Kentucky. So why couldn't we sell like crazy in Tennessee? And that's a reasonable argument from a buyer perspective. So that's how we grew this brand, is we use kind of existing success stories to leverage to get into new markets. All right, that's how we've grown it. Kroger has been a super solid supporter for us. I've been to Bentonville. I sat at the white plastic table and talked to the salespeople there. It was kind of fun. Newer customers, you got Winco on the West Coast, Trader Joe's, picked up a whole lot of Camelot mead. It's really been good. But managing retailer relationships is top priority for us. All right, this is where it is. And then in terms of distributors that we use, and we use RNDC mostly in the United States where they're available, as Chris Hibbert, our sales guy, would say, that his job is to hold the distributors accountable, right? Do your job, all right? And I'm here to make sure you do your job. What we agreed upon, you're going to get it done. So, a lot of success out there. This is what we use to really measure how we're doing. It's all Nielsen data, right? It's real time. Are the consumers buying it? Doesn't really matter what I ship, right? Because if it just sits in the distributor's warehouse, that's not good. And the same thing, it's not what they deplete. We talk about the depletions into the stores. I really want to know if the consumers are picking it up. So really, really good news there. Number one in a whole lot of places and solid growth. The wine business is down right now because we're coming off of COVID, right? People are drying out. We grew 40% in 20. 40%. I mean, did you see it in the grocery store? Everybody's grocery cart was like a frozen pizza and a case of beer and $2 of vodka. It was nuts. Anyway, a lot of press. All right? A lot of press in the trade, a lot of press outside of the trade. There's Forbes, all sorts of awards. And we got the top 50 wineries, hot impact brand. So a lot of really good stuff going on here. So this is kind of what happened in the past. So we're 305,000 cases. We're going to bottom out in 2015 to over 750,000 this year. And so when you do stuff like this, and when you start to be noticed, someone might want to buy you. And we had inquiries, and we usually just brushed them off. Like, nah, not interested. I mean, if they're super, super persistent, whatever. But anyway, we did Julie. We sit down on our weekly catch-up meetings. Oh, I got this call from these guys in New York, and they seem serious, and I don't know. But if they keep getting in touch, maybe we'll talk to them. So we had a Zoom call with NexPhase Capital. Nice people, really liked them. The principal, Doug Corbett, up there on the right, he lives in New York, but he likes to point out that he was from Canada, so he's not that bad of a guy. John Esposito, right next to him, was a really big heavy hitter in the industry. I'll talk a little bit more in a little bit. But Julie did the due diligence on these guys, and I think the bigger question for us in terms of do we want to get involved with these folks is what kind of people are they? And on the references, it was unanimous that there are some bad eggs in the venture capital world, but these are the good guys. You really like working with these guys. Should you your deal? Also, they were really impressed with our operation. They didn't see any need to come in and fix anything, right? It wasn't like some big management crisis that they need to sort out and bring in their own people. We developed a lot of comfort with that. And then they wrote a number on a piece of paper, and we're like, whoa, that's nice. As fiduciaries, as when you're in an ESOP environment, the manager, the fiduciary responsibility of the employee owners, right? We can't just go, no, we can't take your offer because we don't like you or because we don't want to mess up with our, whatever company culture and stuff. So we're really obligated to do that. So we did ink a deal with those guys, and we took it back about 18 months ago, and really have enjoyed working with these guys. A little bit more about these guys. So John Esposito comes in us from I mean, he's, president of Stoli and Bacardi and all this stuff. He's a super big heavy hitter. He's a super decent guy. And Doug Corbett, now, Anheuser-Busch, you remember this, it was like, I don't know, 15 years ago, there's this company called InBev that buys Anheuser-Busch, right? This big old hoo-ha in St. Louis that they get sold out. Doug was running InBev. And I think he was like 15. Because look at him now. I mean, he's like, yeah, what the hell? Anyway, and I'll tell you, one thing about working with these guys is that, you kind of know what you don't know. And sometimes you have no idea what you don't know, like the unknown unknowns, right? And these guys have brought a lot of those to our attention. No question, when you're with these guys, we're talking super smart, next level thinking. And super helpful, very supportive, ask a lot of tough questions, but completely fair. And it has been a really good experience working with these folks. We've all learned so much. And they have allowed us to make some just really, really significant investments. So this is 2021. Big 60,000 square feet, winemaking, bottling, warehousing facility, room to put in 1.5 million gallons of tankage. We're just putting it in there as we need it because they're expensive, these 36,000 gallon tanks. We're going to add them in as our sales forecast dictates we need to. Bottling line, which we got up and running this fall, which is just, it's the coolest thing ever. It's just amazing. It's not only really fast, but it does, all the inspection is done automatically, right? We're talking visual inspection for all the things that might be wrong with it, like fill height, cork presence, and capsule registration labels. It can tell you if the wrong label's on there. If you just put Cabernet Sauvignon on there, it should be Zinfandel. It will tell you that too. So it's really, really a neat machine, and it's been just a pleasure to watch this thing operate. One of the things I'm just kind of amazed by this thing is how quiet it is. It's like makes, we need a decimal meter in there or something like this. I mean, it's so much quieter than the old line. It's running twice as fast and making 1/10 the noise. I'm not sure I understand that, but at any rate. So, all right, so that's where we are now, 2014. We were in, 15 states. Now we're in 42. The plan is to fill in the holes, right? That's the plan. The plan is to make us a legit national brand. We have enough capacity to make 2 million cases in wine a year. So that's the goal, to make 2 million cases in wine a year. Any questions? Just that easy, huh?
Okay, everybody, we're almost out of time, but we want to. I do have one question that I'd like to throw out there to hear what you would answer. If there was any piece of advice you could give entrepreneurs, what would it be?
The cliche is persistence, and but it's so true. I mean, there were times when it was just so kind of like, how in the heck are we going to get out of this mess? But just sort of that belief that you can pull it off with enough energy and creativity, And I would also say, this is expanding on that, is I really appreciate business as a creative outlet. It certainly has been for us. And I think that's really what it needs to be. You need to be innovative, you need to be creative, you need to be different, right? Really different. And kind of think beyond what the current paradigm of whatever it is, the business that you're in. So persistence and creativity.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Steve, do you have a question?
Oh, God, yeah. One thing, I tell you, we, by just sheer dumb luck, got our bottle supplier in on some seriously rock-solid contracts prior to COVID, right? And we were a big customer for our bottler. So we were able to get glass, right? That was a big deal. That was something, the biggest concern we had was getting glass. The biggest supply chain issue we had was our bottling line. It was getting the bottling line. It was installed in the fall. And, the pieces kind of dribbled in over time, over a really long period of time. It's kind of opportunity cost when you got a lot of millions of dollars just sitting there in crates and you can't use it. And then another, on that issue, is all these technicians that had to come here and put it together because we had people, it was mostly Italian equipment. you know, we need Italian tech guys to come in, and it wasn't just, it was like a different guy for the labeler and then the capsular and the monoblock, and we got this filtration system, and then we got this control electronics to cover everything. And so there's a lot of people that need to be here, and it was really hard to get them there together at the same time. It's mostly related to COVID travel restrictions. So in terms of COVID, that was a big problem. You know, I was just, you know, it was like Wall Street Journal, they're talking about just-in-case inventory versus just-in-time inventory. Everybody's buying like crazy. And man, we had like our inventory labels and corks and everything was ridiculous. I go, why we buy 4 semi-loads of corks? Well, you never know. So there they are. So I think we're kind of easing back into a little more reasonable amount of inventory, but we were stocking up on all this stuff just to sort of cover our rear end. So yeah, good question.
All right, great. Okay, folks, I think that we're out of time. But again, I want to thank all of you for coming. Sponsors, thank you again so much. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be able to do what we do. So again, thank you, kudos. Bill, mostly, thank you, man.
Fun.
Great.
Fun. Thank you all.